Welcome to the Bedrock Engineers podcast, bringing you robot combat discussions for people who don't know what they're talking about.
It's carnage here in the Battlebots! Oh! Huge hit there! Now he's a fire-breathing dragon! Hey! Hold on! Woo! I feel like I'm in a scene from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre! Getting, we're gonna need a bot medic!
Here are your hosts, Ben and Scott. Get the show on the road. Welcome back, everybody, to the Bedrock Engineers podcast. I'm your host, Ben, a.k.a. Mokemeister on Reddit, and this is my co-host, Scott. Say hi, Scott.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well.
Yeah, me too. We have some stuff to talk about, a.k.a. follow-up, before we start discussing Episode 7. It's been confirmed from Episode 4 when Cobalt fought Duck. Cobalt really was stuck on a piece of the floor. It did not stop working.
Okay.
And the reason why it wasn't juddering around and trying to wiggle itself off is because its wheels are very small and lightweight and do not have much inertia. They only weigh a few pounds.
And who is that confirmed by?
The Cobalt team. And a bunch of other teams that were like, yeah, they were working just fine.
Okay.
Yeah. And Duck's, you know how we were talking with Hal about how Duck's unibody rigid aluminum frame got chunks taken out of it but was otherwise fine? It was warped. It was actually bent to the point where he would have to do... Sorry, I'm hiccuping. He would have to do some serious repairs on it. So for its next fight in this episode, they used a spare Duck, because he made two, which a lot of people don't like for some reason, but it's like...
Don't like what?
Don't like the idea that you can bring either... You can bring another fully assembled robot with you. They say, no, what you should do instead is bring enough spare parts to make another one, but have it disassembled.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous when you're talking about a frame.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can't, if once a frame is damaged, you're pretty well screwed. You would need, I disagree with that, man. I mean, I think teams should show up with multiple robots. I think it should be the same design, the same robot basically, but... Mm-hmm. Run them through, man. Let's go.
You know what I do think is weird?
Because it's a destructive sport. It's like if you say NASCAR, you can only have one car, and then on Sunday when you wreck it, you have to get it rebuilt by the next Sunday. That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You know what is kind of shady though, and I don't agree with, is that Lockjaw, Donald Hudson. He brought one of the previous season's Lockjaws with him in case this one was having issues or got too broken. But the previous season's Lockjaws with the flipper on it is a completely different machine, and it's a completely different body in terms of shape, drive, motors, tons of different stuff. It's not the same machine at all, and you can't do that. I think that's a little too much on the edge of like cheating almost.
Well, I don't think it's cheating, but I do think you should get your seed should go to the bottom of the list, for instance. I mean, because it's not the same robot.
No.
I'm okay with you bringing enough robots to keep fighting robots, because after all, we want to see robots fight. But if he was to be seeded 2 or 3, and then his robot's basically destroyed, you can't ride on the past successes of a machine that's no longer there. But I like somebody who brings machines to run in these competitions. That's the goal, is bring a machine out and let's fight them.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about winning things, getting seeded for a tournament, then it matters what you're bringing out.
Yeah, and I hate to use something that everybody's heard a whole bunch of times now, but legitimate sporting competition, you got to think about like ethics and integrity, and how far do we allow a certain concept to go before we say, okay, that's a little too ridiculous. Like there's people who still haven't really accepted the legality of, for example, in the older Robot Wars series, there was a quantum-esque machine called Razor, Big Crusher, right? And then a guy that they've fought before made this big like ring almost around the robot that would just hold Razor's claw away from it, so they could just push them all around. And I think something like that would be a little bit less of an issue nowadays, just because like a machine like Razor or like Quantum has tons of its own pushing power. So even if it's being held away like a bully holding a kid away, the Crusher could still push them around. But a lot of people thought that was just straight up cheating. It was ridiculous because it was uncounterable. And then they got proven wrong when Razor later again fought them and just had a hook on the end of its beak and just lifted Tornado up and carried them all around. Which was a genius way to defeat that cage. Yeah. Even though I was a big Razor fanboy when I was a kid, when I first found this series on YouTube, I thought it was a great idea for Tornado to do that, and I never accepted that it could be cheating.
I don't consider it cheating. You need to think of a way around the problem, and somebody did. There is a way around every problem.
Yeah,
there
and then
really
Razor
is.
And Razor thought of their own very simple, very smart solution with a hook.
Yes.
Just why not?
When somebody says something is uncounterable, they're basically wrong immediately.
I remember when people were saying that about Broncos twangers, or twangers or whatever they're called. Yeah, people were saying that's unethical, that's way too strong, it shouldn't be allowed, and it actually ended up boning them in several fights. Those really don't do much of anything, I don't think.
Well, I thought they did a little something, but uncounterable and cheating, no, they weren't that.
To me, and I mean, I'm an advocate for getting rid of the active weapon rule, even if spinners weren't as strong as they are right now. But well, hang on. I'm not trying to start that debate, but what I am like the reason I'm pro anti-active weapon, is because I'm just an advocate for the idea that people should build whatever they want as long as it complies with safety rules. Like if you want to build a robot that has those pointers, and let's just say we live in a universe where that really does counter every existing vertical spinner to the point where there's no way they could win, and people say, well, that's too strong, it should be banned. I say, so what if it's strong? I think you should build, the solution to that is to build a robot that can beat that.
I agree.
Yeah, not to like this sport is real life. It's not like a video game where the developers can say, that's too strong, we're going to nerf the damage a little bit and just drag that slider to the left a tiny bit, make it more balanced. Now, this is a thing where basically you'll be putting limitations on how powerful weapons can be without regards to safety, like spinners already have the 250 mile an hour speed limit rule. Technically, everybody has that, but spinners are really the only people affected by it.
Okay.
But of course, that's for safety, and also most spinners run nowhere near that, so that doesn't actually hurt them at all. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you that people should be able to build what they want and bring it and fight it. One problem with that, though, is you're still trying to build a show that has good viewership, that everybody can turn into a real sport that you can, pay for itself or make some money maybe. And you got to have viewers for that. And I just don't know if robots pushing each other around is going to do that. But really, if a robot can push everybody around and win, I'm still in favor of it.
Yeah, I think really, and Spinnerproof has talked about this as well, if this diatribe sounds a little familiar to some people. The fear with allowing wedge bots in is when you get a wedge versus wedge fight, which can still be really great fights. Tons of driving skill and shoving into the wall, full body hammer mode, but sometimes they can be the most dreadful kind of fights imaginable.
They can.
Where you have two boxes that are roughly the same pushing power and roughly the same speed, and they just kind of go head to head every once in a while and nothing really happens.
Actually, I say they can like I know. I don't know, but I've seen two wrestlers do that, and it's boring as hell. Even though it's very technical, and people that wrestle understand what's going on, to the average person, it's boring.
In robo games where there is no active weapon rule, and Duck has no lifter, and Original Sin, which is free shipping in this show, it has no lifter. So there was a Whoops versus Original Sin fight, and even though those two machines have great fights all the time against other spinners or against just this fight was horrible. It was terrible.
What's that series called?
Robo Games. It's a live event, so the only footage you're going to find of it is just handheld cameras on YouTube.
And do wedge bots rule that sport?
They almost do. Original Sin wins almost every other tournament there, but
that's Gary Jin's machine.
That's Gary Jin's machine, yeah. And there are very few machines that can beat that machine, but there's other wedge bots that are much worse. And really. I was saying last time...
So vertical spinners just can't do anything to the wedge?
No. Vertical spinners counter wedges because wedges don't offer any sort of resistance the way they do against horizontal spinners. Because horizontal spinners, they scrape upward and almost corkscrew off the wedge, just get tons of their energy wasted being deflected upward. Vertical spinners, if they can get under the wedge, will like with Minotaur, for example, it's got those two little forks on the front. Very good at getting under full width wedges. It will tear the wedge, sometimes clean off, but other times it will shred the edge of it because it's got a good surface to bite a hold of and just rip apart.
So they get defeated at times then.
Yeah, I don't think Toro Maximus has ever lost to Original Sin before.
Okay. And
And that's the RoboGames Minotaur. Yeah, Original Sin just gets its ass kicked by Toro Maximus. Yeah. And Last Rites as well, the tombstone of RoboGames, it also takes Original Sin's wheels off a lot. Because Ray does that spin trick he does. Yeah.
Well, going back to Lockjaw, I don't consider it unethical him bringing a different robot because he's not sneaking it in. You know, he's not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's obviously made it known. I've got another robot. You know, but and we want to see robots fight. So you know, I say good for him bringing another robot. I mean, Son of Waiachi bought 3 robots.
Well, they're all different machines entered under different legal names.
I know. I mean, you do get into a problem if he all of a sudden switches this robot out. I'm really not sure how I think about that, but
you know, I'm just now that you've put the thought in my head, I'm just imagining like Son of Waiachi making the final 16 and Hydra doesn't, and then in its first fight, Son of Waiachi like wins, but it gets too badly damaged to continue. So then the next fight, they put Hydra in. They're like, no, this is Son of Waiachi. Yeah, no, it's the same. It's the same robot. Yeah.
What if has Son of Waiachi or has Team Waiachi gone against each other yet?
No, and I wonder what would happen if they did. Like, you gotta wonder.
Is it the same 3 guys driving each of them?
I think Falcon is headed by only the team captain. Like, this was just his own little funny project. Like, well, let me see what I can build with the least amount of money possible. And then, you know, what he built was a piece of crap. But
Hydra, he made it clear he was building a cheap robot.
I really have to wonder, like, what the rules are on the team basically finding themselves. Like, if Son of Waiachi and Hydra meet in the final 16, then you have to wonder, is there potential for one of them to just throw the fight so the other one can win?
You definitely have to worry about that.
Yeah, I'm really wondering what... Like, I mean, these guys are great. Like, they've been in the sport for decades now. They are completely ethical, but... there's always that but. You have to wonder if they really would do that.
You do have to wonder. Doesn't mean they would, but you do have to wonder.
I don't even know if it's different guys driving each one. So it's like you'd have to
that one dude that's real distinctive. Always stands on the far right when we're watching him with his arms crossed, you know. And I think he's in at least 2 teams. So anyway, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they would intentionally seed them or put them in separate brackets, meaning they couldn't meet up until at least the semis or even the finals. But that wouldn't be fair either. If they truly deserve to be put into different brackets, that's fine. But anyway, it's interesting.
Speaking of spare robots, you remember how Copperhead's drum looked all shiny and new because they made 2 of them? Turns out they made 2 entire machines, and they were running the second one against Gruff. Because that was the version that Robert Cohen had built, and they wanted to test that one as well.
And he drove it.
He drove it, yes, because it was his machine, and
there you go.
He also was not happy whatsoever about being thrown under the bus by the 2 commentators. Like, he didn't apparently. I think he said he didn't know that was going on, so he was very surprised when he watched the episode, and they were basically calling him trash. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be happy either about that.
No, but you know what? That's their job as well. First to make a little controversy, and secondly to talk shit.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to check out his post-fight report of the battle, his YouTube channel is his name, Robert Cohen, and he explained everything that went wrong in this fight and everything that went right as well, which was that we got a great fight out of it, and he took the machine out to the parking lot right after the fight without even turning it off, when the sensors were still going wild with these weird input, like, readings, basically, and he was just like, I'm going to try to drive this thing in a straight line, and the damn thing was, like, so drunk, it was just driving all over the place, doing weird figure 8s and spins and stuff. He was just trying to drive it straight.
Wow.
So the thing was practically undrivable by the end of the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's why people need to bring more machines. These things get destroyed, man. It's like if you were entering cars in a demolition derby. You are not going to escape undamaged. You know, you're going to get, unless you just happen to get one clean knockout. And even then, you absorb some of that force as well. So, we need them to bring parts and machines.
Yeah.
So
one last
good for them.
One last bit of follow up. The 8-week break turns out just a rumor. It's only 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and technically it's 1 week because we're skipping one Friday, so it'll be 2 weeks before a new episode. But we're only skipping 1 week effectively.
Well, wait. You're telling me we're going to have an episode, and then we're going to have a Friday with no episode, and then we're going to have another episode on a Friday?
Yeah.
That's a 1 week break. That's not a 2 week break.
But we go 2 weeks without an episode.
Well, we go 1 week between each episode.
All right, 1 week break. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we will definitely be taking a break.
If you had a job and you worked only Fridays, and then you had a Friday off, no one would say that's... okay, I understand it technically is a 2 week break, but you...
Yeah.
It's still, you have a week off. That's what we have. We have a week off.
Yeah,
that's the way to say it.
You got a big point, yeah. Also, we will not be doing a bonus episode anymore. I'm sorry for anybody who wanted that, but a 1 week break is not... we're going to take advantage of that now.
Yeah.
If it were an 8 week break, we would for sure do at least one bonus episode, but it's not a 1 week break. They're doing that 1 week break for Shark Week, which nobody watches anyway. Does anybody really still watch Shark Week? I don't think so. It's because it's the same programs every time. They don't even air all the Mythbusters Shark episodes during Shark Week, which is, Discovery's best content for Shark Week, and they don't air all of them. So that's just confusing.
Shark Week is the same thing. It's done. It's over with, man.
Air Jaws is cool, though. I'll give you that. Watching great whites jump out of the water in slow motion
is cool.
Is amazing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Also, just seeing them jumping into the air, biting the rubber seal, and then before their bodies have even left the water, they've already spat it out because they've realized that it's not a real seal. Yeah, that's really interesting to see in slow motion. Mm-hmm. God, there's such amazing predators, and it's a damn shame they're going extinct. It really is. Just because people are so afraid of them. Yeah, I would hate to see the day when the great white goes extinct. For real. Don't expect to see me in the water with one of them, though, in the shark cage, because I am still deathly afraid of sharks.
That's an apex predator, man.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, because killer whales prey on them.
Well,
only thing that eats them, killer whales.
So they're badass still.
Yeah,
killer whales are badass.
Yeah, you do not mess with a killer whale. They weigh well over twice what a great white shark weighs, and they're far more intelligent.
Teams.
They're far more intelligent, and they hunt in packs as well.
Well, they're mammals.
You do not mess with a killer whale. They are the ultimate predator on the entire planet. We've got a Battlebots episode to talk about, so let's go ahead. What did you think of this episode?
First I have to admit that I was doing a few things around the house. I was trying to cook a meal right when it was coming on, man. So I didn't get to pay as close of attention as I normally do. It was kind of a lackluster episode for me. What was your best one ever? Is that what you thought?
Dude, this is probably the best episode of anything I have ever watched.
Really?
Yes. I cannot, seriously, I told my brother that.
I admitted, man, I didn't pay as close of attention as normal.
I'm so sad to hear that. Oh man, this was undoubtedly the best episode of the BattleBots reboot. Is this the best episode of Robot Combat that's ever been aired? I think it may have knocked the Series 10 Grand Final off its pedestal as the best, Robot Combat episode of all time. Seriously.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, I told my brother what I just told you, and he was like, was it better than Breaking Bad? And I was like, that's not fair. That's not fair, and you know it. Wow. I mean, I was seriously exhilarated by the end of it. I mean, every single thing. This episode had everything. Everything and more. I mean, every second of the show was just so good. The intros, the commentary, the fights, the pit sections were all just... It's a masterpiece.
I'm going to have to watch it again.
It's a masterpiece, yeah. I will let you log into my Amazon account. I will make sure you watch this episode and enjoy it the
All right,
way
let's
you
run
should
through it,
first
man.
time. Okay, first fight was Death Roll versus Quantum. And it's weird. I would never have imagined going into this season that Death Roll would be the first machine to get its third win. Seriously. Like,
So it was the first machine to get its third win.
yeah,
huh?
it's the first machine to be 3-0. Currently
Wow.
the only machine to be 3-0 this entire season so far. Seriously, like, yeah, I mean, you look at everything, especially given Death Roll's early exit in Season 2, and you're like, well, you know, it may do kind of well, and then it's like, no, it's been totally whooping ass the whole time it's been here.
Well, 3-0 you can't discount.
No, and they're almost a 100% lock for the Final 16 because all three of their wins have been knockouts, very decisive knockouts.
They should be.
Yeah. Big old vertical spinner, super unique looking machine as well. They're not going to be concerned about there being too many of that in the Final 16. So the odds are all in its favor.
Yeah.
Quantum, on the other hand,
Quantum looked like it almost got a bite on him, and then it shook him off, and that was it.
Yeah.
Death Roll got some big hits on him. That's certainly what I saw.
yep.
Knocked him out. How
This
long
is-
did the fight last? do you think?
Well, I don't time the fights.
Okay.
I think it lasted about a minute, but it was a great fight. Great driving the whole time from both teams, even though Quantum was on the back foot the entire time after that first bite. Really impressive damage from Death Roll. That spinner they've got is so cool, the way it's designed, the shape of it. This is, of course, an upgrade of the machine called Great White. Speaking of Great Whites, speaking of Shark Week, from King of Bots, the Chinese show, which would have been a finalist had... okay, so I have to kind of explain this one a little bit. King of Bots, you know how on Battlebots the pulverizers are controlled by the teams. They hit a button to use the hammer. Yeah. In King of Bots, there's another hazard that the teams can control. It's this panel of the floor that comes up and flips machines over. When your opponent drives over it, you can hit a button to do that.
And each team can activate it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing is, though, you're not allowed to hit that button until a minute and 30 seconds into the fight.
Okay.
And Great White, one of their teammates, accidentally did 2 seconds early at one point. They won the fight, and then later on they were getting the tape reviewed, like after they announced the winner, I think, and then they were like, "Oh, you guys used it a little early, so sorry."
Well, they should put...
Why is that even turned on before the
Exactly.
halfway point?
Exactly.
Oh,
It
yeah,
should
you-
have a kill switch that or it activates after 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's it.
Yeah, there's
Or
a big
you know, I
firestorm.
mean, if the goal is to actually make you pay attention to that, then you should get penalized somehow. You definitely shouldn't win. But anyway.
Yeah, well, sorry. Well, I mean, I shouldn't apologize to the team because it's been over a year by now. But yeah, they got eliminated despite having no defeats, and because of a technical oversight, I guess, by some guys who designed the arena. Yeah, I don't get why it's turned on before. I think they just really wanted somebody to accidentally hit it early at some point. Yeah, there's no other explanation. Yeah. But this is Death Roll and Quantum. This is one of those super cool matchups between two machines that are like almost the same size, almost the same body shape, and like you look at these two and you're like, yeah, these are more than a match for each other because they're so similar looking. And I love that. I love that kind of matchup.
So what's Quantum's record now?
1-2, 1 win, 2 losses. Unfortunately, it's only gotten a bite on one machine, which is a tragic waste of that.
We were
weapon.
so worried about them, impaling everybody.
Yeah, and Jameson Go on the Hardcore podcast, and I'm going to probably be referencing him a lot because he gave some good context on some of these fights. Everyone was really concerned about Quantum because there's basically no way to defend against something like that. If AR-500 doesn't work, nothing works. And then after this fight especially, people were going, okay, maybe we won't have to fight them, especially the people with good records who were going, maybe we won't have to fight them, maybe they won't make the final 16. And can we really call Quantum's performance a disappointment? I guess we could, but everybody pretty much expected them to not do as well on Battlebots as they did on King of Bots. Because Battlebots' build quality is, as a whole, much higher than King of Bots. All the spinners work better. The drivers are more experienced. Stuff like that. They fought a Son of Waiachi ripoff that basically took like a week and a half to get spun up. So they never actually took a hit, really, from them. Whereas the real Son of Waiachi would decimate them. Because there's just no armor on that machine. They've never the team said before the season started, they were like, the thickest armor there is on the machine is 3 mil titanium. It's really more of a skin than armor, just to cover up the Quantum. Yeah, just to cover up the internals. And in the post-fight interview, Quantum's team captain said basically the same thing I've been saying this whole time, which was that front end is just not as good as it needs to be. Opponents keep getting under them.
Yeah, they definitely got under them. So would you say Quantum got his ass kicked?
Well, should I? I mean, it wasn't like a
thorough
route.
I don't think he did.
No. Yeah, it was not like a complete route.
He did knock some parts, start beating him up and tore some parts off, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they basically just couldn't move anymore after about a minute or so?
Yeah, they got knocked out. They got knocked out very decisively. Got their sides torn up. They took loads of damage, but they didn't quite get their ass kicked.
I don't think so either.
I will definitely say this about Death Roll. It's that this is a really good example of why redundancy is better than protecting those belts, because if you had one belt and you just tried to protect it with a strip of metal, this is Quantum. Nothing protects against Quantum.
Right.
If they had only one belt, and if they had like a steel strip or something to protect that belt, Quantum would have bit straight through that and got the belt, or jammed it up, or something along those lines.
So Death Roll has multiple belts?
Yeah, they have 2 belts, and I really liked how in the replay they actually drew a circle around the 2 belts and had an arrow pointing at them. That was kind of funny and also informative.
Yeah.
Quantum, like I said, people kind of expected them to not do as good in this show as they did in King of Bots. Even in the King of Bots spinoff called This Is Fighting Robots, they were the reigning champions coming in, and then they got taken out rather easily by a certain vertical spinner called 2 Barbecue, which is a really lame name. Apparently, they're the direct translation of the Chinese name is supposed to be Judge Grill, which is way better, but it's 2 Barbecue, like the number 2, and then BBQ. They got taken out rather easily by I think they lost 2 fights, despite being reigning champion and having several upgrades of their own. So yeah, we figured out now how to make a Crusher powerful enough to go through modern armor, which is something people didn't think was possible anymore. Now let's figure out how to give it some kind of defensive ability.
Somebody will figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Bombshell versus Cobalt. I'm going to say the same thing Ryan Bratley said about Duck versus Bombshell. Good. That's all there is to really say about Bombshell. Cobalt, I still wish this was Carbide, but Cobalt is great. Yeah, I still love their
quick fight,
saw-like vertical spinner. Yeah, Bombshell is really going to go 0-4 again. It's hilarious. Seriously, I mean, I had so much hope for their redemption this season, and it's just not happening.
No, it's not.
Apparently this fight went on a little longer than was put on TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because this fight actually happened twice, right? They filmed it twice, and what you saw on TV was the second film.
Man?
See, because the thing is, what they did was they started the fight, and then the hit happened. There was a hit that sent Bombshell on its back, and Cobalt moved back a few feet and got stuck on the floor again. So both machines were immobilized within a few seconds. And there's a rule within the Battlebots rulebook that if both machines get immobilized within minute 1, you can restart the fight if both teams allow it, and they both did. They were like, yeah, that sucked, let's do it again. Yeah. We don't want this to go to the judges on that.
No.
So they did it again, and then the exact same hit happened, except Cobalt didn't get stuck this time, and Bombshell, being the piece of shit that it is, got stuck on its back because its back wheels don't touch the ground in this stupid boat mode. I mean,
what do you think of robots getting stuck on the floor?
I mean, I think it's fair game, although the floor just shouldn't be bad enough for that to happen. Like I've said, I said in the past that I don't expect the floor to be flat. I just expect it to be smooth. I think it's good that it's not perfectly flat, but it shouldn't be jagged and with shards of metal sticking up out of it and big ledges that are like 2 inches tall that make you have to take weird routes all over the place to get to the opponent, and sometimes even drive backwards to not let your forks or wedge catch on the floor. Like, it should have varying elevations and be sort of sloping and kind of like with like little hills here and there, but it should not be the way it is right now. And this floor is 10 years old. They've been running it in live events since 2009. It is on its last legs. It needs to go out, and that's why they're building a new floor. I do, however, think it's ridiculous that Cobalt managed to get stuck again, because I would have thought that would be a big problem they need to correct for this fight.
Well, that's kind of how I think about it. I mean, we know the floors, and the floor can always get jagged, and a new floor can get messed up as well.
Yeah.
We're going to have to think about that.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to have to engineer a solution around that.
Mm-hmm. I'm just a little worried that more casual viewers will regard that as being complete nonsense, and they'll be like, the floor, like if they see the Duck Cobalt fight, they'll say, well, why on earth is it allowed to end like that? Like, you should get them unstuck. This show sucks. I'm not going to watch it anymore. And then a lot of people
that's a
just turn it
concern.
off. Yeah. Which is probably their main motivator, actually, for building new floors, because they realize that risk as well.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
You know, the corporate think tank decided, hey, that's a concern.
Well, you say they're building a floor. We don't even know if there's another show. So why do you build a floor? Why do you build a floor if you don't even have a commitment for another season?
I think what they're doing is actually just testing a design for a new type of panel made of a different type of steel.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They're not like fully assembling an arena or anything. Yeah. Because season 5 is not confirmed. Although, given how this season is doing even better than last season.
Do we know how this season is doing, by the way?
Yeah.
Viewership and...
Yeah, we usually rank above the 15th spot for Friday night viewings, which, I mean, Friday, apparently for some weird reason I don't understand, is the least...
people go out on Friday night.
Well, I guess so, yeah. I would have thought, because since it's not a school night, people would watch TV.
No, people go out. The worst shows are put on Friday night.
Well, there you go. That's why
it's historically done that way.
That's why Savage Builds is.
However,
of course, after Battlebots,
not all engineers go out on Friday night.
But it is Discovery's #1 show right now, and Discovery is not a small. And we're doing even better now.
It's a network
this season than last season as well. So.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, let's get to it, man.
Yeah. What did we think of Bombshell's boat mode thing?
I didn't really watch this show that much, man. This fight that much, man. I mean, this was quick. I was looking around the corner, but it was quick. That's what I got. Quick.
Yeah. You checked on the pasta. What's the?
I did.
It's over.
Yes. That's exactly what happened.
I am impressed by one thing, and it's Bombshell's ability, without its own feeder wedge, to take out Cobalt's feeder fork thing at the front. Because usually what we see with vertical spinners that don't have a feeder wedge of their own against a machine that has a wedge is that the vertical spinner will just kind of drive on top of them without ever even making contact at all with the wedge. Which is kind of why vertical spinners are a little bit of an awkward weapon type. Despite being a dominant class of machine, they're kind of an awkward weapon type because either you have feeder forks or you don't, and there's big downsides to both. It's a circle. It's not like making it larger will make you more likely to hit things because you still go up.
Right.
Not much ability to hit something that's low to the ground, right, and slopes away from you. But Bombshell managed to hit Cobalt's feeder fork and tear it right off, and then get stuck on their back.
I didn't even notice that.
So
did they get knocked over on their back? Is that what happened?
They did, and then their back wheels don't touch the floor, and they once again died the same way they've died for like 6 of their 8 losses that they've had.
Then that's not going to stop happening.
I'm getting a little bit sick of seeing Bombshell, actually. I mean, as mean as that sounds, I really am. I like the team, and I think the robot's a cool idea, but man.
Is Bombshell in Desperado?
No.
The Desperado channel?
None of the machines that you see in this episode were in it, because the Desperado was filmed between these fights. I think the final was filmed right before Tombstone Rotator, so none of the machines that were in this episode are in the Desperado.
Okay.
And, I came up with a good analogy right after this fight ended. Watching Bombshell in this season and last season is kind of like watching a Twilight movie. I know you haven't seen those, but they were this really shitty genre of romance films. And none of the movies has a plot, none of them has a story, the characters, none of them have arcs. Like, basically nothing happens throughout the entire film in any of them. And you're watching it and you're thinking, when is the movie going to start? And then, like, nothing's going on, and then about, like, a little past the halfway point, you finally realize, wow, this is really all it's going to be. And you kind of, like, this has been my journey through watching Bombshell this season and last season, is that, like, their first 2 losses, I'm just like, well, they're gonna do better, right? Because they're a really good design, and you got these talented engineers behind them. They look good, but then after its 3rd loss, I'm like, yeah, there's really not much of a hope. You kind of grow up a little bit, you know. You're like, wow, this is
what it's gonna be.
This is all it's gonna be. And it's super disappointing, but hey, I mean, maybe they'll get put against Captain Shredderator or something, another robot that has no wins, and we'll really see who sucks more between them two. So should we move on to Gemini versus Tantrum?
Let's do.
What was that Tantrum intro from Farouk? He literally flailed around like a chimpanzee.
That was funny. I saw that. That was funny.
All right. Well, that was the only bad intro of the night.
His intros actually are growing on me, man.
Yeah, his intros were great this episode.
I thought so too.
In particular, I thought later on Blacksmith intro was the best one ever.
Man,
seriously, that was cool.
I know.
I'm sorry you turned up because you're about to get burnt up.
When he started twitching around though, when he introduced Tantrum, that was so funny. And I thought Tantrum was a good-looking robot.
Yeah, they're so small. Like they're the same size. They're even smaller than the two halfweights that it's fighting, which was just bizarre. You know, it's kind of funny. Like I know that there's different densities and all that, different levels of like compactness with these machines. But if you look at something like Sub-Zero, and then something like Minotaur, it just blows your mind how you're like, those two weigh exactly the same, and you're just like, whoa. You know, like when Hydra fought Warhawk, I was thinking they're a lot easier to flip than something like who was the first opponent? Free shipping, right? This big old hefty thing.
Yeah.
And then of course you remember, wait, no, they weigh the same as free shipping, and then that just kind of like screws with your mind a little bit. You're like, but Warhawk is so much smaller, you just can't help but think they'd be easier to flip, but they're not.
What do you think of two robots splitting?
Clusterbots are bad, and they should feel bad. Yeah. They've always been bad. Gemini's only win is actually against another clusterbot, which is in this season.
So,
but
what did you think of Tantrum's puncher? What the hell is a puncher?
Before this season started, they posted a very cool video on Instagram of them hurling big, several hundred-pound chunks of steel many feet, like
they
30 feet
did not
away.
hurl anything many feet away.
Yeah, they weren't able to get a good engagement. And I think that has a lot to do with those horns that are on the little drum thing. Is that a drum? I guess
I don't know what it is.
Well, it's a single tooth spinner that should, in theory, be able to get really good hits, but I just wasn't for whatever reason.
And really, they should have tore up these two little Geminis.
Yeah, I think they
look good.
I think they
were beating them up, and as far as punching them up and punching them, but they didn't really
do a lot of damage.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. Neither did Gemini.
No, Gemini definitely didn't.
I just don't understand people who build clusterbots. Like, they're just never good. I mean, there's one at RoboGames, where there's no active weapon.
But, we've said that about other things, and eventually all of a sudden they are good, and so, I mean, listening to Hal and those other guys talk, the other Roboteers, you do need to give somebody room to keep pushing their idea because they might eventually hit on something. I thought at first cluster robots would be great, and you're right, they seem to be a failure.
Yeah.
The concept of having multiples going out there and doing stuff, but so right now they don't look too good, but I'm growing on the idea. I'm learning. I'm open to the idea of these things, continuing to push their ideas, continuing to refine their designs, and maybe they hit on something good. But right now, they're not that good. They suck.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, what I was about to say was that there's one clusterbot at RoboGames, which is just two wedges. They're called Crash and Burn, and they've beaten Last Rites, the Tombstone of RoboGames, and it was super impressive because what they did was they just did not allow Last Rites to spin up at all because there's always two guys there. Yeah. If you turn around, there's another one that's just stopping you dead. And burning you up with this little blowtorch. Those are really good machines. But I really think that clusterbot's the type of thing that just can't succeed if there's an active weapon rule, because that's just a fundamentally flawed idea. You should just build one machine if you're gonna build a spinner, which you kind of have to do.
It looks that way, but somebody might figure out a way around that.
This is Gemini's second fight this season, their second loss. Last season, they were just as ineffective, I think, but their weapons seemed to do a lot more damage than this year because they would always throw a bunch of sparks and scruff up wedges and almost destroyed Lucky's flipper, actually, last year in the Desperado tournament. This season, they don't even seem to throw sparks, especially in their first fight against Gruff and Marvin, where it seemed like even when they got a full speed hit, their spinner would just stop completely dead and not do any kind of damage. It's very strange to see this downgrade, but they appear to be working fine and just not be doing any damage. So I'm confused.
Yeah.
I think that Tantrum's lack of engagement is because of those forks that are on the horns that are on the sides of their spinner, kind of holding opponents away from their own weapon. And I think they need those to self-right, so I'm not going to suggest taking them off. But
Tantrum came into this fight. What was their record?
0-0. This is their first fight.
Okay.
Yeah. They might have been in a Rumble at some point, which was not aired,
Yeah.
with Uppercut and somebody else. I don't know. But I think it was actually the other Clusterbot, the Four Horsemen, which is the only machine Gemini's ever beaten.
And this was not a split decision, right?
This was not a split decision. This was unanimous. Gemini didn't... I think Gemini got their ass kicked. Yeah, but this was an awesome fight. Seriously.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, it was a great driving match.
Well, you're right. It was a
teams.
good fight. I was just, at first I thought, man, Tantrum's really beating him up. And then I realized what Kenny and Chris were saying was true, that Tantrum wasn't doing much damage. And it's hard for me to say someone gets their ass kicked if they're not getting beat up hard.
Well, they were getting thoroughly outdriven, but they were still doing quite good
were.
themselves. I especially love the moment where the black Gemini twin was stuck on something, and then the other one came in and got it off.
Yeah.
That was funny. Yeah. But I thought it was a really great spectacle, and it is interesting seeing Clusterbots that are bigger than the opponent they're fighting. And you know that this is the type of fight that when it gets uploaded to Facebook, there's going to be tons of casual viewers who go in and are like, well, Clusterbots are overpowered because they're ganging up on this poor defenseless little one. And it's like, actually, yeah, I never really thought about that. When the heavier robot is smaller than the other two, it can look like they're unfairly bullying the heavier one, right? Yeah. Or if the opponent is like Minotaur or something. But if these two guys were fighting something like Free Shipping, for example, which is a big old chonky thing, it'd be very clearly, those are two piddly robots fighting a big robot who clearly cannot do anything to the big robot. I almost knocked my beer can over. But that's about all I had to say. You got anything else?
No, I don't.
Well, I really like Tantrum, and I hope they get that problem.
I like Tantrum too.
Yeah, I hope they get that problem figured out. If anything else, they look very nice, and
they did look good.
Jameson
I normally don't say that about robots, but their robot looked good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like the orange. I like their thick ass wedge. That thing, it is thicker than a bowl of whole oatmeal. And who was it? Jameson Go or it was Dave Mold, the Cobalt guy. Mm-hmm. He was on RoboCast, and he said that Tantrum is one of the strongest robots he's ever seen. Because the chassis is made out of 3 big, thick billets of aluminium, as he says, because he's British, and then held together with these thick ass steel bolts made of like AR-500 each, and then like everything about it is so utterly solid, it's never getting taken apart. So I'm highly.
If they can just learn to punch.
I'm highly impressed. Yeah, I'm highly impressed with their machine that they've built.
It seems odd to have an episode where somebody comes in 0-0 and somebody else comes in 2-0. I don't know. It just seems like it should all be a little more even.
There's a few machines we've never seen yet in there. Like I think there's 5 or 6. Speaking of which, Deep 6, we still haven't seen them fight. No. Which is unfortunate because I really wanted to see them get like hit something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So we move on from a really good fight to a great fight. Lockjaw versus Duck. This was one, I went in, I had no idea who was going to win. I could not pick somebody who was like, I'm thinking they're going to defeat the other one. No, I had no idea.
So you couldn't tell who won the fight? Is that what you mean?
No. I could tell Lockjaw won the fight. I mean, before the fight happened. I was like, I have no idea who's going to win this. Like, this seems like one of the most fair possible matchups you could have. And it was. It was amazingly fun to watch these two machines just
It was a
go
good
at
fight. I didn't think Duck did much.
I mean, they were a nuisance, if anything, and I thought it was hilarious to see them like hitting Lockjaw with their with their face.
Yeah, their little lifter thing, man, just missed on almost every occasion. It didn't get under him and flip them.
I think that beak needs to be longer if
it
can really do anything. If of course they knocked out Bombshell, but it's Bombshell.
Yeah, right.
I think Bombshell also partially flipped themselves over.
What do you think started making Lockjaw smoke?
Well, Lockjaw smoked and died in both its fights in the Remars live event. So I'm thinking that machine's just kind of unreliable. And the reason it didn't die in this fight was because it was air conditioned inside, but the Remars live event was filmed outside in the sweltering California heat. So
that would be much more difficult for a machine.
Yeah. Actually, wait. They didn't. No. They didn't smoke in their first fight. They just died randomly because like something came unplugged. In their second fight, they smoked and caught on fire and ended up losing to Scorpios.
Are you talking about? What are you talking about?
The Remars live event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which happened way after this season. So apparently, whatever problems Lockjaw had in this fight, they hadn't fixed by then. But yeah, Lockjaw I think won this decisively. And there's actually a lot of controversy about this fight right now.
Oh,
People
really?
saying Duck should have won, which is just confusing to me. Like,
No.
how can you possibly look at this fight and argue that Duck won? They did phenomenally, okay, but they didn't win.
They
They
didn't
did
win.
not win at all.
And when you say they did phenomenally, do you mean they survived?
They survived and were clearly the underdog, but they just kept on coming. And they provided a great fight, but they didn't win. They didn't beat Lockjaw.
No, they did not.
No, not at all. Unless people are saying Lockjaw
And they
should have
didn't
lost.
do much to Lockjaw.
Yeah, they didn't do much. That lifter is too
Did
slow for that
Lockjaw,
little spike to be an effective hammer.
No, that was a different fight. Never mind.
Are you thinking of Quantum?
Well, no.
Well, yeah, Lockjaw is still phenomenally driven. Something that they do when they're getting ready to hit someone with their spinner that I never really noticed before is that they will slightly push down their lifting forks and lift their front wheels off the floor to get more force on the tips of those forks to get under people, which I think is a really cool idea. I wonder how hard that is to do. Like, not push the forks down too far and lift yourself way up. Like, maybe there's some button that they can hold that slightly lifts them.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I would like to think.
Probably, yeah. And then that little salute they can do with their, they push one down and then the other one way up and do this like scissor salute. I think that's cool after every fight. Yeah, I like that. Lockjaw's kind of growing on me, you know. Like I much like a lot of people dislike them a little bit because they went to a vertical spinner despite being like a spring power flipper before. But you can't deny that machine's effective. And the fact that they spin at a very slow speed means that they'll probably never knock themselves out. Doesn't stop them from overheating, but it can stop them from knocking themselves out.
So did they overheat in their first fight? Is that what you're telling me?
No. At the Remars live event.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, let's not talk. I'm not talking about Remars. I'm talking about their first fight on Battlebots.
No.
Okay.
Wait, on all of Battlebots or this season?
This season.
Okay. Well, you got to be explicit and clear. But yeah, Tombstone took out both their left side wheels in one hit.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
And then in the
now.
Quantum fight, they beat Quantum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was a great fight. Did you think it was an overly good fight, or did you kind of just think Duck got its ass kicked?
No, I didn't think Duck got his ass kicked. I didn't think Duck did much. And that's really all I've got written down, man. I mean, Lockjaw, did some damage to him, but not a lot of damage. I mean, Duck is tough.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think this is one of the best fights of the season so far.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It had a ton of action in it, ton of hits without doing a whole bunch of damage, but still visible damage.
I like damage, man.
Well, I like lots of hits that deal some damage, but not tons at once.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we see things differently.
Yeah. Well, I did think it was one of the best fights of the season. And then right after that, we got the best fight of the season, and probably the best fight of the reboot, Sawblaze versus Blacksmith. J-Mo and Al Kendall. Can I just give you a round of applause?
They went at it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this was a brutal brawl, almost to the death. And seriously, man, I'm just gushing. We need to start talking about it before I go on a tangent here.
I thought it was very close.
Yeah, very close, undoubtedly. I thought for sure Blacksmith won it, actually.
Oh, really?
Because
no, I scored it 4-3 for Sawblaze.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, that's close.
Yeah, I
saw Sawblaze is winning it.
I was kind of with everybody else when they first announced the decision. I did not think there was any conceivable way Blacksmith could lose this. And then they did lose.
You mean before the fight?
Before, everybody went in thinking Sawblaze is going to whoop his ass and there's not even going to be a contest.
Oh, okay.
Then we all saw Sawblaze struggling to stop wheeling and keep its forks on the floor. And then to us at the time, it looked like Blacksmith just whooped him to death. And we were going, man, there's no way Sawblaze wins this. And then they did, and I was just literally like, when they announced that decision,
So you really thought, you thought Blacksmith should have won?
I thought Blacksmith should have won, but then later, with the knowledge that they had won, I was like, what on earth were they thinking? First of all, this is a great fight, so I'm going to watch it anyway. But then I watched it again, and I was like, Sawblaze did way better than Blacksmith did.
Yeah.
Because I was overly focused on the fact that they couldn't stop wheeling and they couldn't keep their forks on the floor. But then I realized Blacksmith did not push them 1 inch. Sawblaze was pushing Blacksmith everywhere and had them up against the wall many times, had them into the pulverizer at one point. Yeah, and they just thoroughly drove Blacksmith.
Well, Jameson's a great driver.
Despite not being able to keep their forks on the ground. And there's a reason for that. What were you going to say?
I don't know.
I kind of cut you off, I'm sorry. But... So right before the season started, during testing, the sprocket that connects the motor to the arm, that lets them move the arm, it actually broke because they made it out of overly thin aluminum. So they went into CAD, they designed a new one, and they got it machined on site by one of their sponsors. I think it was Tormach, so thank you guys for giving us this fight. But the way they redesigned it, they made it larger so it'd be stronger, but that also reduced the gear ratio from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1. So the arm has a lot less resistance to being moved by outside forces, so it's just floppier, whereas before it would be very stiff. Mm-hmm. And that stiffness was what would have allowed them to not wheelie. You okay?
Yeah.
So that stiffness is what would have allowed them to not wheelie. They could just go forward and the arm wouldn't move very much. The thing might kind of do that a little bit, but it'd be very easy to keep on the floor. But with it being this floppy, they were not able to he really had to focus on that a lot and kind of got the hang of it by the end of the fight. But it was a big problem for sure. And I think it was the only reason for the split decision. With Jameson being familiar with these controls, Sawblaze owns Blacksmith in every conceivable way, really. It was really the difficulty in driving this machine that made this a great fight, I think. And the heavier weapon at the back only made the problem even worse.
Man, I like he spins around and uses the rear, his blade at the rear, and then he's a great driver. Yeah,
so...
I don't know that he's the best driver.
Nah, because Paul Ventimiglia is a man who...
Well, I think you say Paul, Paul's great.
Gary Ginn?
No. The brothers, Vasquez brothers.
Jeff and Mike Vasquez.
Yeah, Vasquez.
Matt
Vasquez is a great driver. Certainly, Jameson is a great driver. Mm-hmm. And there's one other guy I was really impressed by too. But anyway. You say it's great that Jameson can drive in reverse and just go full vert mode. I'm wondering why he didn't do that, because he will do that. He did do it once.
Well, he did it once, but he stopped and went back to driving forward, right? So he actually does that a lot with Megatron, the featherweight 30-pound machine that competes at Motorama that Sawblaze is based on. He will, after the opponent's weapon has died, he will just turn around and use his thing, spin it up, and use it as it's just a vertical spinner. And he only does that when he's certain that the opponent's not going to be able to take out his weapon, like if their weapon is just dead. But this is Blacksmith's hammer. What is it really going to do?
You still have to make sure, man.
I don't know.
You don't want to think it can't happen, and then it happens, and you're like, you lost because of that. I mean, that's, it's strategy.
I'm not saying if I were Jameson, but if I were driving a robot like Sawblaze, I wouldn't trust my own driving enough. Like, once I realized that it was going to be a big chore to keep those forks on the ground, I think I would have just turned around and gone full vert. But, hey, it worked for him. They didn't lose.
He's an experienced roboteer, man. You gotta.
I know, but you see, I don't think I could ever build or operate a robot like Sawblaze, because Jameson controls that entire thing by himself. It's basically 4 things you're controlling. You got to control the drive, the arm. Well, it's actually 3 things: the drive, the arm, and the spinning of the disc. You got to turn it on and off. That's a lot to manage.
Did his disc quit?
Apparently, a combination of Blacksmith's hammer positioning, because Blacksmith's hammer has these 4 knobs on the sides that can help it deal more damage. Not that helps or anything, because Blacksmith's hammer doesn't deal any damage. But at one point, it hit Sawblaze's weapon pivot where the belts connect, and it didn't do anything. Then when Sawblaze moved its arm, it actually dragged Blacksmith's hammer across the 2 belts, and one of them got pulled off and snagged with the other one, so that's what stopped it.
So the answer is yes?
The answer is essentially yes. It wasn't the swinging of the hammer that did it, though. It was it just was there, and it got pulled across.
Definitely quit working.
It did quit working, yeah. So the weapon, like, they were running it at only 40% speed for this fight for several reasons. One is because they didn't know for sure if they could survive if the arm wouldn't just get yanked off by this 40 kilojoule spinner imparting all of its energy on a thick steel target, right? Yeah. So if I'm doing this math correct, which I am because it's very simple math, calculating rotational energy, RPM is squared, right? So if you have 40% RPM, you have only 16% energy. So if you have 40 kilojoules at 100%, you have 6.4 kilojoules at 40% of the speed. And given that it was only running that fast, and it still managed to completely cave in that quarter-inch steel top armor, AR-500 armor on Blacksmith, I would think that, wow, that's a terrifying weapon.
What did you think of him swapping his blade out for his, whatever you call that thing he used?
He calls it the Momentum Saw.
Okay.
It's a really cool weapon. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
So the other reason was that why they're running the weapon at only 40% speed is also because their speed controllers just were not cooperating with them. You know how in the first fight, the regular saw was barely getting spun up.
Yes.
It just had no torque behind it. They could not get the speed controller calibrated correctly for this heavier blade. They're running a sensorless, brushless motor, which means it has a tendency to cog for a few seconds, and also just has very, very low startup torque and takes forever to get spun up. So no sensor on that motor. And he told me as well that right the day before this fight happened, they basically hogged the test box all the way until midnight, constantly adjusting the speed controller to try to get spun up. And their best spin up time they got was like 18 seconds, which is terrible. So they decided that they were going to have to run the weapon for the entire fight instead of only spinning it up to full when they have an opponent pinned, like he does with Megatron, because Megatron has a fast spin up time. And I'm really wondering, like, if that weapon only weighs 30 pounds, then how come the spin up time is so low, or is so long rather?
Well, it sounds like because you can't get the speed controller adjusted correctly.
I mean, yeah, but like.
It has to be. It has to be that.
I mean, yeah, it's got to be that for sure. Not that it really made much of a difference because, like I said, I think that weapon's fine to be run at 40% speed. Maybe they could kick it up to 50.
No, I'm going to disagree, man. I thought he needed his weapon.
Well, it didn't seem to be gyroing very much, so that's good. It was still, in terms of steering, it was still fine, I think. And from what I saw, it seemed to be getting spun up to that speed just fine. Like it didn't take long to get spun up at all. But up to 100%, yeah, best spin up time 18 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have that would not have worked very well in this fight at all. So yeah, and
well, you're now cool with Sawblades winning.
No, I am. But just the first time I saw this, I was just overly focused on just the fact that they were not able to keep their forks on the ground, and I thought their driving was bad.
That didn't make you lose, man.
Well, no, but like I thought from that their driving is bad because that's all I was able to see is just Sawblades can't keep its forks on the ground. And then when I lost it, I was like, okay, well everything else was still top notch.
Yeah,
so
it was.
They definitely deserve this win. I hope
so too.
I hope that people can kind of look past this and rewatch the fight themselves and realize, yeah, they were doing better than Blacksmith.
They were.
At the same time, though, I feel so bad that Al Kindle had to lose this. Because, I mean, you can see on his face at the end, he's so angry. Because he thought he had that one for sure. And Jameson thought for sure he had lost. He was actually...
I don't think Jameson thought he lost.
I think he did. He said so. But not in the episode, on Hardcore.
Okay.
But, yeah, his Fitbit did say 141 beats per whatever. As he,
he wasn't sure he won. Well, apparently that
he was thinking maybe. I actually typed in my notes as I was watching before the judge's decision. I typed Sawblaze is now 1-2. What are their chances? And then I reacted the way I did to the decision where I just threw my arms in the air and my mouth was just like, huh? But yeah, I was very confused, and now it makes sense because the judges, they will watch replays as many times as they need to.
Sure.
So the next fight was Shell Shock versus Railgun Max. Shell Shock finally making their debut. They're a cool-looking full-body spinner. Railgun Max having their second fight now and showing that they're kind of unreliable because they burst into flame too.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Despite that, though...
Is this the one where they ran out with the exhaust hose and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then during the interview, Shell Shock caught fire.
Big
Actually.
time.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't seen the last of that in this episode, but we'll get to that. I think Shell Shock. We'll say it together.
Shell Shock
got its ass kicked.
Definitely. It was quick, man. Shell Shock was weak. Couple big hits. Boom. That was it.
It wasn't spinning fast. Not at all. It was spinning at maybe 50 miles an hour, and that's it. Which is sad because that shell they have is 130 pounds, and it's milled out of a single giant block of 4340 steel. They posted a time lapse on Instagram of the shell being milled. It's quite amazing.
Well, I'm sure that's cool.
Whereas most full body spinners are,
they need something else to go with that.
Yeah, most full body spinners are a sheet, like a panel of steel that kind of is like a crescent moon. They then bend them together and weld the thing into a cone shape. This one is not that, which I think would make it stronger, but of course the welding is professionally done, so it's just as strong. But I really like the look of Shell Shock, and it's just a shame that they didn't perform well at all in this fight.
They didn't perform well.
Yeah, one hit, and the tooth came flying off. Mm-hmm. Another hit, and they just died.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. What are we thinking of Railgun Max?
Are they 1-1 now?
They're 2-1. They're 2-0. They've won both of their fights.
I don't think Shell Shock gave them quite enough of a fight to really say.
That's really all there is to say about this fight. It was cool. I should say even the two really short fights in this episode that ended in one hit or one or two hits still had great hits in them.
I thought that about the last episode. You didn't seem to think so. And I don't think it quite as much about this episode.
Well, I mean, this one only had two for one thing, and also I really like Cobalt and I really like Shell Shock. Both of these were interesting losses that were more than just like, oh.
Shell Shock wasn't an interesting loss. I disagree.
You can kind of say that, I guess.
It wasn't interesting for me.
I mean, this wasn't necessarily a great fight, but I thought it was okay. Yeah, it was funny how they both caught fire.
That's fine. Well, that was funny. I did like that.
Yeah, just during the interview, the crowd is like, "Oh!" and then they look over, it's just bursting into flames. That. Yeah.
People like fire.
So I guess that's all there is to say. Tombstone versus Rotator was the best main event so far this season.
Well, it was good.
Holy hell.
It was good.
Holy hell.
No doubt. No doubt, man. Rotator took it to him.
Rotator is a worthy opponent for anybody.
Yes. Really. I mean, Rotator took it to him, man.
Also, I think this is proof that they would have still won against Ice Wave last season if Ice Wave's bar hadn't stopped working after 2 hits.
Well, no, whatever.
That wedge on the front of Rotator is 1/2 inch of titanium.
It worked well, man. Mm-hmm. It worked well.
Wow, yeah. Oh my goodness. This was like the crazy... This was probably Tombstone's best fight, I think. Like the best fight Tombstone's ever been in. Seriously. Better than Tombstone Minotaur. I'm going there.
I don't know about that, but...
Really?
Well, I mean...
Have you seen Tombstone Minotaur?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was last year, right?
Yeah. First episode.
Oh, well, maybe I didn't see that. Anyway, Ray didn't seem to be too overly concerned.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he puts on a persona for the show, where he's like, I'm on the top of the world, but
he does.
He's not one of the guys that will talk shit and then get hit because he's still happy, after losing.
I liked how he told him, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, that was great that they included that between them. I've never seen that.
I haven't either.
I've seen funny quips, but not something like that. Oh man, so Rotator running their anti-horizontal spin up. I'm still so sad that we haven't seen the 2 weapons from them yet, but they couldn't really do that in this fight.
Yeah.
And then of course there was a horizontal.
Wedge was a huge weapon for them.
These are the craziest hits I've ever seen from Tombstone. Because when it hits something, it goes flying a lot, but not like this.
Tombstone took the brunt of Tombstone's hits.
Yes, it did.
I mean. He hit the hell out of him, and it seemed like all the energy went back into his robot.
Yeah, Rotator didn't even have a very damaged wedge by the end of this.
No.
Which is interesting. I do wonder...
He had big gouges in there before the start of the fight, though.
Yeah, because those were both from Ice Wave.
Yeah.
Last season. This is the same wedge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're from last season?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, a plow that big made of half an inch of titanium is expensive as all shit.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
titanium is a very expensive metal. It's the most expensive metal that's used in this sport. So you make one of those, you don't make another one. That's the end of the story. And we also got to see something we don't really get to see a lot, which is a horizontal on horizontal hit where they're both spinning opposite directions. So Tombstone's going anti-clockwise, Rotator is also going anti-clockwise, and they collide directly, and Rotator's bar disintegrates and apparently hit one of the Lexan panels so hard that it needed to be replaced later. And then one of Tombstone's teeth flaked in half, I guess, and was causing the robot to shake and shudder all over the place.
That's what he said.
That was cool. And I really wish they called more attention to that moment, because that was a direct weapon-on-weapon hit, and they just kind of glossed over it.
Yeah, they did. Right.
And then of course Tombstone's weapon stops, and then they burst into flame.
They did.
Oh, this was the
And it
biggest
got worse
raging inferno.
worse and worse.
As soon as I saw that fire, I was like, "Oh, they're screwed," because that fire's on the bottom, and fire rises. It will spread. It will spread to another part of it.
Did you think that was a battery fire?
I thought for sure it was something. I don't know what it was, and I don't think it'll ever be determined, because they let it burn after the fight for like 20 minutes.
Oh, really?
And then when they finally got guys in there with gas masks, they actually...
Why did they let it burn for 20 minutes?
I don't know, probably because it was a safety hazard.
Well,
I mean, there was a lot of smoke.
I wondered about all that smoke for the audience.
I mean, the arena
hazard.
is apparently airtight, and then they will get in those yellow
okay.
tubes. I don't know why they let it burn for 20 minutes, but they did for whatever reason.
Crazy.
And then after they finally got in fire extinguishers, put out the fire, they actually unscrewed Tombstone's top lid and then lifted it up and dumped it out. Ash was just going everywhere, and Tombstone looked like it was empty on the inside. So it got its shit burnt the fuck up.
Oh yeah, it did.
Wow, yeah, and it still managed to drive, for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and then it got counted out in 2 seconds because the ref was going so fast. He wanted Rotator to get the knockout.
Yeah, he did.
and then as he was saying knockout, Ray turned to him and was like laughing. I imagine you couldn't hear what he was saying, but if I were him, I would have been like, "You piece of shit! You counted me out so fast." But you could tell he didn't care about that though. He thought it was hilarious because he was laughing his head off.
The guy didn't start counting at 10 seconds, did he?
Well, no. Countouts are supposed to take 20 seconds. Only the last 10 counts are out loud. You have to give them 10 seconds to start moving again, and then you're like, okay, 10, 9, and then, But this guy, as soon as Tombstone stopped moving pretty much, and everybody started cheering,
Everybody wants Tombstone to at least get a loss.
The ref said, you got to show me some kind of movement. Okay, 10, 9, and then was like that, and he counted like twice a second.
When you're in the arena, is the clock running? Can you see the clock?
Yes, you can see the clock.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they also do the picture-in-picture edit. You could very clearly see the ref was counting faster than 1 second at a time. But Victor Soto, was completely showboating to the crowd after that, and he deserves to because he beat Tombstone and made it catch fire.
Yeah, he did.
Tombstone was a smoldering wreck at the end of this fight.
Did you say Tombstone got his ass kicked?
Did he? I
really don't think he got his ass kicked.
This was just a fight that was
but
great.
I think he burned the fuck up.
He burned the fuck up. He burned to Kingdom Come, and like my mouth wasn't just like a gape. Like my jaw like unhinged like a snake. It was horrifying. I was so shocked by what was happening. I couldn't believe that Rotator was going to knock Tombstone out.
When the fight started, I was like, Tombstone's going to kill this guy, and man, he didn't. He didn't, and he took the brunt of those hits. Yeah,
he did. He was just flying and flipping like an acrobat, just
man.
all over the place. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, he was.
And you know what's interesting? Rotator did win this fight because of that weapon-on-weapon hit for 2 reasons. One is obviously because it split Tombstone's tooth and made it shake itself to death and caused a bunch of electrical problems that started the fire. And the second is because if Rotator's weapon hadn't broken, they would have lost. Because they got stuck on the floor twice. And the imbalance of their weapon allowed themselves to shake off of that spot.
Rotator did?
Rotator got stuck on the floor twice. And because their weapon was broken and imbalanced...
People are going to have to come up with a solution for this floor.
Yeah, and especially considering that Rotator doesn't even have a low ground clearance. Like, it's not a machine with like ground scraping underside or anything like Cobalt is. It has big old wheels, and it's still got stuck, which is really telling.
Yeah, it is.
Really indicative of a very
makes you
serious
wonder
problem.
how good the final 16 fights are going to be with an arena that's got problems.
You know, as much as the memes as funny as the memes are, it really hasn't been that bad. It's affected maybe
a lot
one
of
out of every
robots
10
are getting
fights.
snagged on the floor, man, hung up on
Yeah.
the floor.
It really hasn't been that big of an issue, though.
Well, you sound like it's a big issue.
Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, if the teams are mostly okay with it, I mean, obviously they want a new floor for next season because this is bullshit.
Well, nobody's
but...
going to criticize them openly. I mean, they're still
Yeah.
in charge. It's
Yeah.
Discovery's show, and Discovery invites you to be on the show. So, well, it'll be interesting to see how Ray rebounds from this loss, and how he performs in his next fight.
It's a good thing he brought 2 tombstones to the event
yeah.
because this one is
I thought he brought
completely
3.
trash. Nah, he brought 2. He brought 2 fully welded frames and enough spares to put in it to make a new tombstone. But yeah, this one, I do wonder how structurally sound the frame still is after being heated for that long by a fire.
Why did they let it burn for 20 minutes? That doesn't make any sense.
I have absolutely no idea. I couldn't tell you. I wasn't there.
All right.
But I'm sure someone will, clear that up eventually. Regardless, it was an amazing ass fight. One of the best of the season.
It was good.
Preceded by the best of the season. Oh man, I thought it was just a great episode. Easily the best of the reboot. Probably the best episode of this sport ever, in my opinion. And I want you to watch it again at some point without making pasta, because wow, you missed out, man. I'm sorry, you missed out.
My timing is off on Friday night.
Yeah. Well, anyway, is that it for everybody?
That's about all I've got, man.
I do want to add as well, Jameson Go told a really funny joke. I was asking him, I told him on Instagram, hey, did you notice that you beat Rotator and then Tombstone beat you, but then Rotator beat Tombstone? And then he said something. He said something I found really funny. He said the circle of suck is complete. and then he later said that exact thing on Hardcore Podcast that I listened to yesterday. So it was funny to hear him say that to me in text, and then him actually say it out loud. It was quite funny. But yeah, still that damn pulverizer. I'm #still bitter. But great episode. Just oh man, if the rest of the season is like this, that is a world-beating piece of TV. Seriously.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
I thought last episode was one of the best ever.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do like episode 6 a lot better than I did when we first sort of reviewed it. Just because I have watched it again, and it is like, yeah, I can see how people would love this episode more than
a lot of damage done.
I did. Yeah, lots of damage.
Parts broken. Although this one, man, had 2 fires in the end, and that was nice too. Mm-hmm. Although those are, that's got to be hard on your equipment, man.
Yeah.
He didn't have to clean out the inside; that was done for him already.
Yeah.
Everything just burned up.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody so much for watching. This was a ton of fun, like it always is. Scott, thank you for being here with me.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for all our listeners. Really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night.